Okay, so today we have a review for exam on Thursday. So the review goes coming from your assignment. I will not read one by one, okay? Just give you information what you have to know, especially for the exam. Okay? So I'm gonna stress on the things that you should know for the exam. First, here, name of disorders, disease, okay, in respiratory, digestive, and also disorder in nutrition. Okay, so I'll write it down here. So make sure at home you study that disease, the disorder, and what is definition and also the cause of that disorder or disease. Example, okay, example, TB. What is TB? What is TB? What kind of disease is that? It is in the digestive system, respiratory system, or nutrition problem? Respiratory system. What is that? Tuberculosis, which is caused by bacteria. There is a bacteria, it's called the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that causing this disease. Pneumonia. What is pneumonia? It is a lung infection caused by maybe viruses or bacteria. So it's caused by bacteria or viruses. How about Zollinger-Ellison disease? Zollinger-Ellison disease, this is in the digestive system. This individual produces too much gastrin. What is gastrin? Gastrin is the hormone that produced by the stomach to increase the acid, hydrochloric acid production. It means that this person will have a lot of acidity in his or her stomach. Okay, that's example. How about anorexia nervosa? What kind of disorders is that? Nutritional disorder, where this individual feel that mostly, I think it's mostly female, right? So usually they think that I am so fat, and then she or he actually try to starvations by herself or himself. I don't want to eat because think that every time he or she look at the mirror, I am so big. Okay? So that's the anorexia. How about bulimia? What is the difference between bulimia and anorexia? Sarah, what is bulimia? Yeah, so bulimia is actually a person that have the kind of nervous, he become fat. So he actually try to purge himself, but he also like to eat. So beings and eat and then purge at the same time. It's just a cycles on it. So it's kind of a disorders in nutrition. So read that one. Okay? Read the disease, disorders, and the cause. Okay, so kwashiorkor, marasmus, that's another starvation kind of disorder. Diverculosis, diverculitis, peritonitis. So read that part. Okay, so make sure you learn the name of the disease and the cause. Okay. That's first. Second, for the respiratory system, okay, make sure you know which organs are upper respiratory part and which organ lower respiratory part. Okay? Like for example, nose, then pharynx, larynx. Now another name of larynx is voice box. Okay, and then the air will go to the trachea, which is windpipe, Okay, go to bronchi, okay, left and right, okay, and then go to bronchioles, okay, and then finally N as an alveoli. Okay, so part of the bronchioles and alveoli is protected or covered by lungs. Okay, so nose, pharynx, larynx, this is most of the time we consider as upper. So this is upper respiratory tract organ. Okay, under this trachea, alveoli, bronchus, bronchioles, it is lower respiratory tract organs. Okay, now also over here, make sure you know the place, okay, for respiration itself, because there are two portions over here: the conducting system and the respiratory portions of this respiratory system. Right? All of this, from the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and mostly the bronchioles, they are all conducting system, because this is just a channel. Right? They don't really have the gas exchange. Yeah, the main part for the gas exchange will be the alveoli. So alveoli is the respiratory portion. There is a little bit bronchioles part also used for respiration, but it's very few, very little part. Yeah? Alveoli is the respiratory portion. The rest will be the conducting system for this respiratory system. If you got this one, then you will be very happy in the exam. If not, you're gonna be sad. Hey, you have questions so far? Now, the oxygen and carbon dioxide circulation. Okay, so oxygen 98.5%, 98.5% carried in the red blood cell, which is bind to hemoglobin. Right? So 98.5% bind to the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the proteins that's located in the red blood cell. Therefore, it is carried by the red blood cell. That's the oxygen. Now, carbon dioxide in the circulation, 70% carried in the plasma, as bicarbonic acid, bicarbonic ions over here. So 70% carbon dioxide will be carried as bicarbonic ions. 23% in the red blood cell bind to hemoglobin. So hemoglobin also carry the carbon dioxide, especially when it is carried back to the lungs, return it back to the lungs. And only 7% in the plasma as form of gas, carbon dioxide itself. So that's the number of oxygen and carbon dioxide that's carried in our circulation. Okay, now this is important also when the oxygen carried by the hemoglobin over here. So you have hemoglobin oxygen kind of binding. So this binding is actually really high affinity. It means that it's really strong. It's really strong binding. It's not easy to actually for the hemoglobin to release oxygen. It's only released to the place that need it, the cell that need it. The signs of the cell that need the oxygen will be what that cell have a very low oxygen level. So if the cell have a very low oxygen level, then the hemoglobin will release oxygen to that cell. And when the cell actually have very high carbon dioxide concentration, when it has high carbon dioxide concentration, then the pH will be lower, low pH or high acidity, acids. Remember, lower pH means more acid. Okay, and also that cell, when it is active, actually has this condition, and the temperature will be also increased. Temperature increase, and it will produce a waste product. Is called a BPG, biphosphoglyceride. So these 5 conditions of the tissue of the cell that will make the hemoglobin release the oxygen to this place. Mostly this condition happening when the cell are active. The more active the cell, the more oxygen will be delivered on that place. So when you do exercise, when you do activities, the cell will have this condition, and it will cause the hemoglobin to release the oxygen on that place. Okay, you got this one, right? So this is for the cell that is non-active, lazy cell. Mostly they will not get oxygen, because what? Because they don't have that condition. That's the condition that will increase the release of oxygen by hemoglobin to this active cell or tissue. Okay, I think this is part of the respiratory system that you must know, at least for this. Okay, mostly will coming from this. You have question for this? We go to the digestive system, right? So digestive system. Okay, digestive system. From this, make sure you know which one is tract, which one is accessory. If you know that, again, you will be very happy. So digestive system, it has 2 types of organ. The first one is called the GI tract organs, which is also known as alimentary canal, because it will make pathway or canal. And the second part is called the accessory organs. Now, for the GI tract, it starts with the opening, is called the mouth. And then the food will go to the pharynx. Now, very important for the pharynx, it is also used by the respiratory system. Make sure you know this is the organ that use both respiratory and digestive system. from the pharynx, and then we'll go to the esophagus. From the esophagus, go to the stomach. Stomach, go to the small intestine. And small intestine has three parts. Okay, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Okay, and then from there, from the ileum, the undigested food will go to the large intestine. It is also known as colon. Okay. And then it will go to rectum, stay for a while, and then out from our body through the anus. Okay, so these are the 8 GI tract organs. Last time we mentioned 9, right? One of them is appendix. It's not really important because that's actually not used for food. Okay, we have problem if the food goes there. So the appendix is located between small intestine and the large intestine. There is a small organ that is not used. It's called the rudimentary organ. It's called the appendix. Okay, now accessory organ. We have 3 in the mouth. This is 3 in the mouth, which is teeth, tongue, and 3 pairs of salivary glands. So this pair is parotid, which is under our cheek, in the cheek, and then submandibular, under the mandible, and then sublingual, under the tongue. So 3 pairs of salivary glands in the mouth. And then the other 3 accessory organs are located in the abdominal cavity. The first one is really big, it's called liver. And then the second one is actually attached to the liver, it's called the gallbladder. And the last one is very important, produce a lot of enzyme, is called the pancreas. These are the 3 accessory organs in the abdominal cavity. So make sure you know the function over here. Liver produce bile. Bile helps lipid or fat digestion. Gallbladder is actually don't produce anything. It is a storage. This is bile storage. Pancreas produce pancreatic juice that consists of enzymes, bicarbonate, enzyme, and sodium bicarbonate. Okay, so make sure you know this. When I put that on the question, you know which one is accessory, which one is tract. Okay, now we're gonna talk a little bit about teeth because we have not talked yet. So teeth has 3 parts. Okay, the top one is called the crown. Okay, and then the under it there is neck. Okay, and then the one that goes into our gums is the root. So crown, neck, and the root. Now on the crown, the main substance that make the teeth is called dentin. Dentin is actually bone. Right? This is bone. but because it's in the teeth, it has special name, dentist. Therefore you go to the dentist, right? Because it has dentin over here. Dentin is actually bone structure that has higher calcium level compared to the regular bone. Remember when we talk about bone tissue, I think chapter 6, something like that. Okay, so in PMS 171, bone tissue actually consists of 50% calcium, 25% water, and 25% collagen fiber. That's the contents or the composition of healthy bone, regular bone. 50% calcium, 25% water, 25% collagen fiber. Now in the dentin, the ratio of calcium is increased. It is not 50%, but the calcium now 70%. It means that it will have less water contents in the teeth, in the tooth. What does that mean? It means that it's going to be harder, because calcium is the substance that make the bone harder. The collagen fiber over here, this is the one that make the bone stronger. So the bone is hard and strong at the same time. Harder because of calcium, stronger because of the fiber, collagen fiber. Okay, now look at the dentin. It has more calcium, 70%. It means that dentin will be harder than the regular bone. Now, the crown also covered by layer is called the enamel. The enamel actually now has 90 to 95% calcium in it. What does that mean? It's really, really hard. Enamel actually the hardest substance in our body. So enamel is the hardest part of our body. It's harder than regular bone. That's the teeth component. Okay, you have a question for it. The next one that you also have to know is especially the enzyme. Okay, for this one, make sure you read the review again. Okay, which enzyme produced by, let's say, the tongue produce enzyme. Tongue produce enzyme. It's called the lingual lipase. It will break down the lipids. So fat digestion starts in the mouth. Salivary gland produce also another enzyme. It's called the salivary amylase. This is the one that digests carbohydrates. So lipids and carbohydrate digestion is actually started in the mouth. But protein is not. Proteins will start in the stomach. Okay, remember stomach over here produce enzyme is called the pepsin. It will digest the proteins. It also produce gastric lipase. It will digest the lipids more. That one. Now, pancreas. There are so many enzymes produced by the pancreas. The one that digests carbohydrates like pancreatic amylase. There are many that digest proteins like trypsin, chymotrypsins, peptidase, carboxypeptidase. So this digests the protein. Also, it produces pancreatic lipase, to digest the fat, the lipid, pancreas. Now, the small intestine, especially duodenum, it also produces a lot of enzyme. Okay, one of them is alpha dextrinase. This digests the carbohydrates. There is maltase, digests maltose. There is sucrase, digests the sucrose. There is lactase, digests the lactose. There is DNAase, RNAase. There is a phosphatase. There is nucleodase, nucleonidase. So that's enzyme. Then all of them will be present in the duodenum for finishing the digestion. So digestion will be finished in the duodenum, and the absorption also will be happening in the duodenum. So make sure you know this small intestine. This is the part that has most of the digestion and also absorption. Okay. Now pancreas also produce another juice. It's called the sodium bicarbonate. This sodium bicarbonate is actually really alkaline. The pH is really high. What does that mean? It means that the sodium bicarbonate will be produced by the pancreas, will be sent into the duodenum. Why going to the duodenum? Because the food, after it's digested from the stomach, will go to the duodenum, right? And remember, stomach is very acidic. Therefore, it's require a liquid that neutralizes the acid. That liquid is called a sodium bicarbonate. So the function is to neutralize acid that coming from the stomach. Okay, so that's sodium bicarbonate over there. Okay, you have questions so far? Okay. Stomach also produces a hormone, maybe hormone that is important right now, is called gastrin. Gastrin is produced by the stomach to increase hydrochloric acid production. So increase the acidity in the stomach. Okay, I think that's kind of part of the digestive system. Anybody have question? No? Okay, last one. Nutrition. Oh, don't forget also the 6 process on the digestive system, like ingestions, right? Secretions, mixing, propulsions, digestions, absorption, and defecation. So make sure you know that 6 process also. Now for the nutrition, okay, this is related how our body actually take or absorb the nutrients. There are 2 types of nutrients, macro and micro. So micronutrients mean that the one is needed in the large concentration or amount. Carbohydrate, lipids, proteins, they are macronutrients. The micro is the one that's needed in lower amount. Most of the electrolytes like zinc, irons, magnesium, they are needed in very small number. They are also known as a trace element. Sometimes this micronutrient also known as a trace element. Okay. There is other thing which is essential. Essential nutrients. This is the nutrients that cannot be made in our body. So our body actually can make some nucleic acid, of course can make some of the lipids, cholesterol, able to make some carbohydrate. But there are some nutrients that cannot be made in our body that we have to, it has to be provided from the diet. And this one is called the essential nutrient. So essential means we have to take it from outside. We have to take it from our food. Okay. Now the BMI. So make sure you know the 4 types of BMI. Right? What is the first one? Underweight, normal, healthy, overweight, and obese. So make sure you know the number there. Right? What else? Again, the disease or the disorders related to the nutrition, malnutrition, or maybe starvation. So make sure you get that one. Okay, about 60%. Okay, our energy or our food has to come from the carbohydrate. So carbohydrate in our food is accounting about 60%. 30% is fat, and about 10% coming from the proteins. So this is the normal healthy food. Majority has to have the carbohydrates in it. Fat, protein is only 10%. But now some people take a lot of more protein, is causing their body to be dehydrated. They might have problem with some uric crystal and etc. Why? Because the protein can cause dehydration also and formation of uric acid. So that's, and on your review, you know how to calculate that. So good things, you know how to calculate the calories from the gram that you eat. So for carbohydrate, for example, 1 gram of carbohydrate is equal to 4.1 calorie. Okay, fat, 1 gram of fat is equal to 9.5 calories. Protein is almost similar with carbohydrate. 1 gram usually has about 4.1 calories. So if I put grams on the question, make sure you able to calculate the calories based on this formula. If I put calories, then make sure you able to convert it into the gram. How many gram we need for carbohydrate, for example. Okay? And you really show me that you're able to calculate that on your paper, on your assignment paper. Okay? Vitamins. Okay? There are 2 types. The one that dissolve in water, which is B complex, and C. The one that dissolve in lipids, lipid vitamin, A, D, E, and K. Okay, so vitamin B, there are so many types. There are B1, B2 until B12. Okay? So therefore it's called the B complex. Okay? Do you have a question for this one? If not, we're done. So again, please study before the exam. So the exam will be on Thursday at the same time with our lecture time over here. And tomorrow we will continue our lab activities